Welcome to A Pair of Bookends, the book club you can carry anywhere. I'm your host, Hannah MacDonald, and I'll be bookending the conversation with some of the most exciting voices from the bookish world. For today's episode, I am delighted to be welcoming back the wonderful Roxy Dunn, who listeners might remember from her episode back in 2024 for our debut Spotlight series. Her debut As Young As This was a truly special one and moved me so much, and I cannot recommend it enough. And for those of you that haven't read it yet, you can grab yourselves a copy via the link in the show notes. For those of you that haven't listened to that episode, I will tell you a little bit about Roxy. So Roxy is a writer and performer and alumni of the BBC comedy Writers' Room. She's acted in multiple television sitcoms and has previously had sellout runs at the Edinburgh Fringe and Soho Theatre. Her previously mentioned debut was a Best Book of 2024 in The Independent, Harper's Bazaar, Stylist, Cosmopolitan and Sunday Times Style. Her scripts have been optioned by several production companies, and her pilot Useless Millennials was commissioned and broadcast on BBC Radio 4. Her latest novel, Wants and Needs, is out tomorrow. It's a sharply observed, witty and moving novel about modern dating, finding yourself, and the intense battle we have between our wants and needs. It's published by Penguin Fig Tree in the UK, and as I said earlier with As Young As This, links to grab yourselves a copy are in the show notes. Here to chat all about it. Welcome, Roxy, to A Pair of Bookends.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be back, and what an intro.
I'm so excited to have you back, and I absolutely love this book, as I knew I would, because I just love your writing so much. And as soon as I knew that you had a new book coming out, I was like, we need to make this happen again. So thank you. But before we dive into you and your book, I do like to start by asking what you're currently reading.
Yeah. Well, actually, you caught me between books, so it's weird.
Amazing.
Finished one and I'm about to start the new, well, I'll tell you the one I just finished because I absolutely loved it. It's my first graphic novel I've ever read. It's weird. I don't think I'd really processed the fact that graphic novels don't have to be sort of fantasy, in that kind of genre. And it's by Lizzie Stewart. It's called Alison. Have you read it?
Is it Alison, you said?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I loved it. I read it for the first time literally a couple of months ago. It's incredible, isn't it?
I was just blown away by it. I mean, my partner came into the room and I was reading it and I just said, I just can't get over this. I mean, I can't believe this is a graphic novel to start with. I said, this is a story I'd want to read anyway. And then I get pictures as well. I mean, I thought it was brilliant, totally gripping, even though it was obviously just quite quiet and just about a life as one, as bit, well, I mean, just about life, but yeah, just such a kind of, in a way, quiet story. But yeah, I was hooked, just absolutely hooked. So anyway, that's the book I've just finished. And then I'm about to start the new Claire Daverley, which I can't wait, because the proof, I don't know why, anyway, the proof kept not arriving. Anyway, finally it has arrived. So yeah, that's my plan for tonight.
I love Claire so much, and I have that waiting on my pile, and I'm so excited to dive in. There's another one like with yours that you just know, if you've previously read their book, that there's just kind of no possibility that you won't enjoy something else they write. and I love that as a feeling. I love it. So yeah, I'm very excited to dive into that. But Lizzie Stewart's changed the game for me. I never thought graphic novels were for me, but then I read Alison and I was so surprised by it and just loved it so much. Yeah, it's incredible.
I want to read more graphic novels in that vein now. So if you've got any other ones, then, send them over because
I'm also on the lookout. So if any listeners want to send any recommendations.
Well, I tell you what I have done. I've pre-ordered her new one that's coming out, The Wreck.
I have received the proof. I'm so
excited.
You've got the
proof. Well, there you go. Yeah.
As soon as I finished Alison and I saw that there was another one coming out, I was straight to the publisher. I was like, please, let me have the new one.
Have you read it? Sorry, or no?
Not yet. But I'm really excited. I'm hoping to get Lizzie on the podcast. So fingers crossed that can happen. But let's get into your book, which might be a bit more difficult for you to chat about than I know a lot of writers love raving about other people's books, but when it gets to their own, they're like, ugh.
Yeah, but I think it all comes around because other people rave about yours on podcasts and then you do it to them. So nobody really ever has to talk about their own book.
I love that. But as I said before, I mean, you were last here to discuss your debut. What's life been like since As Young As This was out in the world and, putting this new novel out, what's that process been like for you?
Yeah, well, so obviously it hasn't yet come out, but I had to remind myself that there is this sense of anxiety that happens around publication. I'm feeling very overwhelmed. So I've had a baby 7 months ago, so I'm overwhelmed in part because of that, I think. But also, I was just checking in with myself yesterday and thinking, gosh, no, I did feel this way before As Young As This came out, because there is always this feeling of not knowing how it's going going to be received. And you start to get a feeling of, oh, I think I've written a good book because, you know, people are enjoying the proof and you get some early reviews and things. But yeah, definitely there is a bit of a tense wait, you know, to see what happens to it. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm, I think, apprehensive but excited about Wants and Needs. And then as young as this, yeah, I mean, that was a great 2 years. It was lovely. I mean, launching the hardback and then the paperback, and doing the events and meeting people. And yeah, I mean, it was great. It really sort of lived up to, I guess, to my expectation of what having being a published author would be like in many senses.
I can't even imagine how surreal it must have been to start seeing your book in bookshops.
Yeah.
If you're a frequenter of bookshops, it's you know, it's always such a nice, comforting place to be, but to see your own name in there must have felt quite surreal.
Yeah, no, that really was something. The one I haven't had yet, which I'm desperate to have, and actually my partner has had it happen with my book, is to see someone reading it in the wild.
Oh my
Yeah, no,
gosh.
I haven't yet. But I'm hoping at some
Oh, I
point in
love that.
time.
If I ever see somebody reading your book, I'll make sure to message you and be like, I've seen
Oh,
them.
thank you, thank you. I think he said that he thinks he actually kind of ruined it for this woman because she was just sat there reading it, and he kind of leant over her and said, "Oh, my partner wrote that." And then I think she didn't really know what to do
What
with
to
it. She
do?
stayed to carry on reading, and then obviously it's about a lot of men, and she was a bit like, "Are you one of these men?" I don't, yeah, it was just
Oh my God, I love that. That's so
yeah.
funny. Let's get into Wants and Needs. I mean, the opening of this book, it has such a banging first line. You're immediately sucked in. So the opening line is, "The afternoon Barney broke off our engagement, I was watching News Round on CBBC while eating a box of mini raisins." Immediately you feel like you know that character so well. Like, why is she eating mini raisins? Why is she watching News Round specifically on CBBC? And why is he breaking off their engagement? Like, what is going on? So straight away you're sucked in. I wondered if that was the actual starting point of the book, or what was the kind of initial idea for this book.
Yeah. No, that scene I wrote quite a lot later. So this
Really?
was in part, well, at least for the beginning, it was a series of fragments that I then stuck together in scenes. So that was one I realized I needed to open with much later.
Hmm.
But the inspiration for the book was really, it was almost the exact opposite to where we find Misty at the start of the book. So what had happened was, you know, what Misty's engagement getting sort of broken off in the first page. And then in my own life, I'd recently met my now partner, and I was kind of at this crossroads where I was considering what it would look like to go on exploring being single and
Hmm.
dating versus committing to this person. And I had a feeling that in all, you know, if I kept going in that direction, I would, in all likelihood, probably end up with a more conventional path of, you know, marriage and children,
Hmm.
which it has. And I think I was sort of examining that as a kind of, I was considering that to be the kind of so-called path of security, you know, versus this
Yeah.
unknown excitement of carrying on with the other thing. There was also excitement in carrying on with my partner, I should say that. However, that then got me thinking, and I was thinking, well, actually, I talk about security,
Hmm.
this, you know, path of security, but how secure is any form of love? What relationship can actually offer that guarantee of safety? And I just became fixated on that question. And but not just from a cerebral point of view. I mean, I viscerally was desperate to try and work this out. You know, what if love didn't offer safety, then what was the point of it? And I
Yeah.
was trying to work this out. And that is really the crux of the book, the central question. And it was that where the novel stemmed from, actually.
I love that so much. And I think she goes on a real journey in this book of figuring out what she wants and what she needs, you know, as the title stands. And I was really intrigued because a few months after her engagement's broken off and her, you know, her life feels like it's kind of blown up in a sense, she goes on Hinge, and it is Hinge, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
the app, yeah, yeah.
my
And
mother's very
she
dismissive of Tinder, but yeah.
and she matches with someone who lists in his profile that you know, don't kind of I don't want to speak to somebody that's kind of not open to what he's open to, which is ENM, and she doesn't know what that means, which she thinks is a band. And I was curious what interested you in obviously exploring modern dating, but also zoning in on ethical non-monogamy.
Yeah, I mean, so this is going to sound weird now, but I didn't set out to write about ethical non-monogamy. This was the thing. Again, it comes back to that question. I was wanting to try and work out about whether any form of love could offer a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
And I quickly realized that the best framework for that was going to be to have a non-monogamous relationship at the center of it, because it made sense to me to take the protagonist and have them explore both ends of that scale. So to have them start with monogamy, and which we think of as being this secure thing,
Yeah.
and to have them try the other end of that scale,
Mm-hmm.
non-monogamy, which you think of as being this kind of insecure, free, exciting thing,
Mm-hmm.
only for her to actually realize those two things sit far closer together on the scale than one would think, because her conclusion in fact is that no form of love can offer a guarantee,
Yes.
which sort of sounds bleak, but I actually don't think that. I think it's liberating, because I think if you can let go of love needing to offer you safety and a guarantee, then you can allow it to offer you other things, like excitement and
Mm.
fulfillment and growth and all, yeah, and all those other aspects, if you're not
Yeah.
fixated on the security question.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, I'm somebody that's struggled for years with anxiety. So, like, all of those kind of questions are really difficult to come to terms with sometimes. But it is really liberating when you think, like, you just have to accept that there is no kind of safety and security in anything.
Yeah.
And whilst it is really scary, it is a liberating thing. And, it was fascinating to watch her go on this journey. And I found that, I really related to Misty, your protagonist, in lots of different ways. And I think almost in parts, she would really irritate me. And I was like, it's because she's holding up a mirror to like the parts of myself that I'm probably like most
Oh,
ashamed of.
that is
But
yeah.
she says how she feels. She's so, she moves through the world. I mean, her mum is fascinated by her. She's so kind of open, and she says how she feels. And
Yeah.
a lot of people kind of keep things to themselves and shut things down, whereas she's very forward with how she feels and how she's thinking. And I think there's something quite not endearing, admirable about that part of her personality, that she is willing to offer up those things for the people, to tell them how she feels, whereas a lot of people kind of won't. How did she come to you?
Yeah, well, I'm really pleased to hear that you. I mean, endearing. I'll take that as well. But the admirable word you use. I think that's really nice, because one of the so Misty's voice, to answer your question, came to me really, really clearly, really strongly, and just really organically, and just really easily. Actually, I just started writing her, but I was worried, because I just thought, gosh, she's all those things you just described. She's
Mhm.
amazingly clear, she's amazingly direct, she's amazingly vulnerable and open and warm. And I thought, this is just not really where modern literature is sitting at the moment. It's
Yeah.
these most of the protagonists I read are kind of spiky, acerbic, emotionally avoidant, and she was the actual
Mm.
opposite of that. And I would come back from the library when I've been working, and I'd say, I love this character, but I just don't know if she's going to convey in the way I want her to on the page, and even
Yeah.
root for her, not find her kind of annoying and sort of
Mm.
polyanery, not
Yes.
amory, and anery. Yeah. So that was a challenge, and I'm really, really, I was so relieved when I sent it to my editor, and they basically that we did a lot of work on it, but they bought her, and I just
Yeah.
thought, oh, phew, because I was willing to fight for her, but I just didn't know whether it would come
Mm.
across. And then I think the other challenge actually about a character like Misty is how you sustain the length of a novel's drama with a character that essentially says what she's thinking. Because if you think about drama, mostly it's actually caused by miscommunication and
Yes.
misunderstanding. Think about all the Shakespeare plots and normal people. That's a series of misunderstandings, and oh, I like you, but I liked you at this time, and you didn't say you liked me at this time. And here we've got a character that basically says, yeah, I like I like you, and constantly is just declaring her feelings. But then of course you find other ways to do that, like, well, okay, give her someone who's not emotionally available, or actually physically is in another relationship with somebody else as well. So I kind of had to put other obstacles in like that. There's two Misties, both single and attracted to each other. The book would be over in a page, right? It'd be, do you
Yeah.
want to be? Yeah, great, let's be together.
Done.
Yeah.
I do think it was really refreshing though, because I, like you, read a lot of, contemporary fiction, and they, like you said, there's often a lot of like spike protagonists or protagonists that aren't kind of saying how they feel, and like you said, it creates a lot of drama because of it. But I did find it refreshing, because I am the kind of person that, like, I'm a very sensitive soul. Like I do like to tell people how I feel. I do like to love quite loudly, and I you don't often see that represented, and it's not the kind of cool way to be.
No, it's not cool. It's definitely
No,
not.
it's
No.
not. It's not. And it's really hard, because if that's your natural way of being, it's like, well, how do you tell yourself not to be that way? So yeah, it was just really nice to read about a character that that I really like could relate
That's
to.
very good. Well, let's make that cool. Let's try and bring back
Please.
exactly. Yeah.
But you were just mentioning, those kinds of characters, and I really enjoyed. There was a moment when she decides to delete all the apps to focus on her writing. She's a writer, and she ends up reading instead, and she makes a list of things that these books have in common.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. This
the
wasn't
list
being a bit rude, yeah, a bit cheeky, yeah, yeah.
but the list is characters who don't feel much, characters who don't really like themselves and or other people, and front covers of women with their heads in their hands. And I felt quite attacked by that last one, because I have been known to often pick up books that have a cover that has women with their heads in their hands or a half covered face. And my best friend Emma always makes a joke about the fact that if she ever sees a book that I've got, and you know, I say, oh, I got this the other day, she's like, of course you've got that, look at the cover. So as soon as I read that, I was like, you got me there.
Yeah, well, it wasn't meant to be a slight on the readers or the authors, more the industry who comes up with these trends, and suddenly all the covers women have got heads in their hands. And
Yeah.
with this, I very much said, I will have anything as a cover. I don't really have a strong preference. I'm not having a woman with her head in her hands. It's the one thing, just nothing along those lines.
Do you know what's really funny as well though is that the one that always springs to mind as the first one that kind of kicked this off for me was Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason.
The funny thing is, that's my favorite book.
I love it.
I know, so it's a weird one, isn't it? There I am
Yeah.
being about these covers, but perhaps if you think that was the first, perhaps that why she gets away with it is
Yeah.
because she originated it rather than being, the stream that followed.
But I will still go for them even now. You know, there was a book that was, I think it was Emily Slapper's debut, Everyone I Know Is Dying, and that was like a half
So,
covered
also,
face, and I was like, I need that in my life, and I knew, you know, I see it on the shelf, and I'll pick it up and I'll read the blurb,
yeah.
so it gets me, it hooks me.
There you go. You can just discount that last thing from the list.
But I want to ask you about Misty's writing journey, because I think another thing that is admirable about her is her resilience in the face of constant rejection, which,
Right.
as creatives, we know all too well. Is it a copywriter that she works as, or have I just completely made that up?
No, isn't she a sale?
She's telesales,
She's
telesales.
probably
Please
does, isn't
ignore
she?
me.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, she does telesales, but she is trying to write on the side, and she's getting a lot of rejections with her books. And I wondered if her experiences in this regard were related to rejections you faced in your own creative career.
Yeah, well, so a few things to say on that. The absolutely to a certain extent. So I wanted to use, I wanted to, when I was trying to get a book published, and in fairness, I only wrote one book that didn't get published, but
Okay.
I was in the industry so I was being the creative arts since I've
Mhm.
graduated from drama school at 21. So I have had my fair share of rejections, whether it's acting, screenwriting, playwriting. So if you meld it all together, then yes,
Mhm.
I faced the equivalent of her 7 book rejection or however many unpublished manuscripts she's written. So in a way, I just wanted to say a massive kind of to anyone reading it who was in a kind of aspiring writer, just to
Mhm.
say, listen, like you're not alone, stick with it. And I also was writing it in a way that I was writing what I've experienced. And I remember going in to meet with my editor, and she said, oh, she went, I mean, I know you want to make her a writer because you want to talk about writing because that's what you know and do. And I went, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's what I want to do. Sorry, it's what I can write in a way that's funny, that I can write it in a way that's relatable. I can write it in a way that feels authentic. And
Mhm.
actually, I think it's interesting. I personally I cannot get enough of reading about writers. I'm obsessed with it. So I think I'm just going to keep writing writer characters until I can't find any other way to make it different. But yeah, I was quite sort of defiant in clinging on to that. I was like, why do I want to make her something like a teacher or just something random? And also, it
Yeah.
wouldn't have made as much sense for the story because the point is her whole life needs to feel like it's in pieces. So she's got to try and be working on her career at the same time. It's got to be all chips down at the beginning. If she had a regular job, a stable job, then there wouldn't be that line with the mother and the kind of, and I don't even have a career. Well, you've never had one of those,
Yeah.
darling. Yeah, it helps with the total implosion of her life.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting thing with creatives as a whole that we lack stability in our life, and we lack the stability in our career. We don't know, it could get pulled out from us at any minute. We don't know, even if we land one job, it's always like, well, okay, well, what's next?
Right. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. You write a book, gets published, and you write the next one. Totally.
exactly. So, it's interesting with this book that she's experiencing, facing that stability head on, both in her relationships and in her personal career. It's a really difficult journey to go on, and I think she gets to 32 and she's like, what am I doing with my life? And I've just turned 31, and I'm I'm the same. I'm like, what are any of us doing? But I want to ask you as well on the subject of rejections, what kind of drives it might be a bit of a cringy question, so I'm sorry if it is, but what kept you going in the face of rejections, and even now, what kind of drives you on?
Yeah, so what did keep me going at the time was no alternative, actually. I had stopped acting. I had very few screenwriting things in the pipeline. I mean, it was just getting so hard to get anything, not let alone commissioned, even optioned at that point.
Hmm.
I was really struggling. And so I didn't have another alternative in a way. I was sort of, I don't know how old I was, 30, let's say. Maybe I was 30, and I was there going, I don't have any other career options at this point. I kind of
Yeah.
have to keep going ahead, like writing is what I want to do. And then that links to the other thing, which is wanting it just so much. I mean, I think if you want it enough, and I did get enough good feedback to make me think, oh, I think I could get this. I do think I could make this novel writing work. But I didn't know that's, as young as this, that was my second book, but my first one got published. I didn't know if it was going to end
Yeah.
up with that. Yeah, and then there's been this just lovely period of my life the last few years where I haven't had rejections. I've got used to not having them now because I'm not putting out as many things in one sense. These
Yeah.
books are taking longer to write, and
Hmm.
luckily this second one, I mean, it was a 2 book deal, but my editor, liked it and wanted it and said yes to it quite quickly in terms of the version I sent her. So yeah, I'm kind of having to brace myself for the idea that I might have to familiarize myself with rejection in this next part of my life, when having had this
Yeah.
lovely period of respite away from it. Actually, it's been the most settled creatively that I've been this period of the last 4 years now. Yeah, because I got the book deal 2 years before it came out, so really
Yeah.
from 2022 until now, it's just been lovely. So yeah,
I
we'll
mean,
see
I'm
what
I'm really happy for you because I know, how intense rejections can be, and I know that they can be frequent, and I think almost with acting, they kind of don't really phase me anymore. Like I almost expect them rather
happens.
than they're just kind of relentless. So you just kind of like, oh well, here goes
Yeah.
another one. Let's on to the next thing. You just have to keep moving because if you let yourself get battered by all those constant rejections, I don't think you'd ever survive it. Like
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a lot. So
Absolutely.
I hope that you continue this
Yeah, I mean, it won't
trajectory.
be just here on out for the rest of my life now. Yes, you wrote a book, here you go, publish it. But it's been a nice little patch for sure. Yeah.
Good, good. That's good. I was listening to the New York Times book review podcast this morning, and they were talking to is it Virginia Evans that's wrote The Correspondent, and that's blown up quite a lot. And apparently that was like her seventh or eighth book, and she'd been rejected throughout. And I was just like, that is absolutely insane that she just kept herself going. And they asked her the same question, and she said that there was nothing else that she wanted to do. There was no alternative. And I
No, I do
think
love those stories for sure. Yeah.
crazy. But I'd like to. There's a really funny story in the book, and I did wonder if this might have been from your own experience, and I really hoped it was. I loved the story of her working after she'd graduated for an events company, and being hired to spell out "Will you marry me" with balloons. And I wrote, "Please tell me this is something you've experienced."
Yes, yeah, I wasn't the one, but it was somebody next to me. Yes.
No,
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the many jobs I did. Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
things we do.
I know. Oh, I like that you described that in the margin. Brilliant.
No, it's brilliant. I would really like to ask you about the mother-daughter dynamic because I absolutely love reading about mother-daughter relationships in fiction, and I just think it's such an intense relationship. And theirs is quite intense because they've only ever been in their own little bubble, and her mother often gives her quite tough love, I'd say. She tells her your suffering is not unique, but then there are other ways that she shows her love in quite quiet ways in comparison to the way that Misty might show love to other people. There is a moment that I just couldn't get over where, and again, just a quiet way of showing love, and it's when her mum makes them quiche for tea and burns the quiche, but only part of it is burnt, and she gives the part that's not burnt to Misty without like just wordlessly, just hands it to her,
Oh.
and it really moved me. I don't know why it moved me so much, but it was so
Oh.
beautiful. Could you tell us a bit about creating their dynamic and how it sort of shapes Misty as a character?
Yeah, definitely. The mother, I mean, so I think it's interesting because I thought originally I was writing a book about romantic relationships,
Hmm.
which, yes, sure, in part, no, probably primarily, in fact, is that. However, as I redrafted it and I went deeper, I actually realized I was writing almost as much about parent-child dynamics, because both Misty and Christopher are the way they are as a result of trying to not become their parents. And
Yes.
if you go back even further than that, Misty's mother is trying to not become her mother. So
Hmm.
they all actually, they're very informed the way they are as people and their flaws, which then link to their romantic attachment styles
Hmm.
as a result of their parents. So I actually ended up going quite a lot deeper than I intended originally. And so the mother at the start was sort of more just this kind of, she's got this dry wit, and
Yeah.
I was kind of using that and enjoying that. And then I went in to meet with my editor to talk about the first draft I'd sent her.
Yeah.
She said, "Why is Misty so scared of being alone? I mean, that's kind of Misty's fundamental flaw, isn't it?" And I said, "Oh, I don't think that really needs explaining. I mean, surely that's just the human condition." And she said, "No, no, it's not. Not everyone feels that way." And I thought, oh, okay, well, I can work on myself, because I thought everyone felt that way. And then that got me thinking, yeah, exactly, about why Misty is the way she is. And
Yeah.
then she just developed the whole backstory with the mother. But that required actually a lot of kind of sitting down and working out what that could be. That actually
Mm.
hadn't really come to me. But then it sort of made sense. It's one of those things that made sense in retrospect, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I hadn't originally intended it to be that way. So yeah, the mother, she ended up being a bigger part of the story than I initially intended her to be. And then, yeah, like I said, the kind of parallels with Christopher trying not to be his mother.
Mm.
Yeah, so they kind of, it became as much about family dynamics, I think, as romantic relationships.
Yeah, and I mean, I loved the way that you wrote the parent-child dynamics, and I do think, there was something so interesting about the maybe sort of parallels between, not parallels, but watching. I'm trying not to give spoilers, but seeing how her mum parents Misty and how she brought her up, and when you learn more about her own experiences as a child in her own parent-child dynamic, it was really fascinating to see how that might have impacted her and how that might affect the way she parents.
Yeah.
It was really moving. But I don't want to give any spoilers. I mean, I want to ask, throughout the book, Misty has an issue with her knee. She pretty much moves back in with her mum after the engagement ends, and she's really struggling with her knee, and it's something that kind of affects her throughout the book in various ways. And I wondered what the knee injury might have represented, or am I just deepening it too much?
No, I don't think you are. So I wanted to put that in originally because I had broken my ankle, and I just felt I had lots of stuff to say about that. I was like, I can write lines that are kind of funny about that, and then again, I think it was my editor, and she said, "Well, why has she got a broken knee? It's just a bit random." And actually, I fought for it, and I said, "No, I don't think it is random, because it's a way of making, kind of learn this in screenwriting.
Hmm.
If her chips are down, let's make her physically weak as well. It was kind of
Yeah.
making that beginning point just so many things she had to climb and recover from in order
Hmm.
to get to where she ends up. So if you think in screenwriting, we learn about this idea of an opening image and an ending image.
Hmm.
And that's why, I mean, it sounds very contrived, but I have her running at the end when she meets
Yes.
Christopher. And at the beginning, she's on crutches or on a leg brace on the sofa. So you're really just trying to always look at the contrast between those two states. So for me,
Yeah.
it added to her lack of, and also the fact she was so, it fed into her this thing where she was totally dependent on people the whole time. It fed
Yes.
that even more.
Yeah, I've just felt so sorry for her. I was like, why is just nothing, nothing
Yeah.
going her way? It
Well,
was,
yeah, and that's the other thing. You want to get people on side, right? So you just
yeah.
make it as rubbish as possible for her at the start. So hopefully people do sympathize with her predicament.
Yeah, and you can really feel her panic when she thinks that that issue is kind of past. She's like, she's still trying to figure things out, but she thinks that's the one thing that she's kind of got out of. And then she gets this twinge in her knee, and she's like, for God's sake, why is it
Yeah.
back? And when she's crawling on all fours to find some painkillers, it was just a really it was just a really sort of beautiful representation of how it feels. Yeah, showing it physically of how it feels when nothing is kind of going right for you, and you really do feel down in your luck. I did wonder, in regards to Misty, and this concept of wants and needs, what writing her has taught you about that concept.
Oh, about wanting and needing.
Yeah, about our wants and needs.
Yeah, oh, it's an interesting one. I mean, the classic obviously is that wanting is, and I think I even reference this in the book, seen as the kind of inferior little degenerate cousin of needing,
Hmm.
right? And that need is given all this. Well, I mean, in one sense it makes sense because it's kind of basic survival, the need. Yeah, I mean, I think about it a lot in terms of, well, I think about it in terms of structure, in terms of, again, what I've been taught and what I teach in screenwriting, where a character often has to let go of the thing they want in order to get the thing they need. But how actually sometimes those two things can be aligned. I don't think they're particularly interesting stories when they're aligned, but they make for quite a happy life, actually, if you want the thing that you end up needing. And I think that a really healthy relationship, you can often want, if your attraction lines up with what's also good for you, then you end up with a scenario in which I think it can be a very positive dynamic. Whereas I suppose a drama is caused by somebody wanting something that isn't necessarily good for them, and that they then have to relinquish that in order to get the thing that they need. I've just said wants and needs a huge amount of times. I've actually lost the plot, but yeah. So yeah, I think that's sort of my current take on it.
Yeah, no, I do think it's fascinating, and I do have the quote here. You wrote, "Did need Trump want? Films and books were always telling us it did, as though want was a superficial little degenerate. But why was wanting something less valid than needing it? Who had decided that?" And I think that's so true.
I don't have an answer to that, because a part of one of the other things I wanted to do with this book was just chuck in loads of questions that I was musing on that I don't have answers to. And that's why I love fiction, because you don't really, I think the journalism, you often need to come up with an answer to your questions.
Yeah.
This book, I've just thrown in so many questions of my own and thoughts and on life that I simply don't have the answer to. So I'm sort of just putting them out there and trying to work it out.
I love that though. I love being able to sort of get see inside a writer's mind, because we're all asking those big questions and all trying to work it all out. So it does make you feel less alone reading things like that. I want to ask regarding, I obviously said in my intro that you have had scripts being optioned by production companies, and I, as the listeners know, I'm a big fan of an adaptation, and I was very curious if there was anything in the pipeline with your books to be adapted.
Not currently. I think they're doing another sort of push around publication, but I would obviously, yeah, I mean that would be the next logical and
Come
exciting
on, guys.
would be to do the adaptation, with my background in screenwriting. So I would love to do that. And I'm always hoping for that. And if it's not one of these two books, hopefully it might be the next book. Yeah.
I'm keeping everything crossed. I would absolutely love to see that. And I do think as well that As Young as This would be perfect for a TV adaptation, just because I think it's got that sort of episodic nature to it.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're listening and you can make this happen, I would love to see it. I absolutely loved this book, Wants and Needs, and I'm so glad that you've written another book. And as always, I can't wait for your next book. So for the listeners, please go and get yourselves a copy of Wants and Needs. It is so excellent, and I just absolutely fell in love with Misty, and I think everyone else will too. So thank you, Roxy, for writing it.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Before I let you go, though, I do like to finish by asking for a recommendation. So is there anything that you would like to recommend to the listeners?
I think I used it up when I was talking about Alison, because it's Alison, actually.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Alison by Lizzie Stewart. Go and buy it. Go and pre-order The Wreck. I haven't read it, but I'm just assuming that's also going to be excellent. So yeah.
I think it will be. I agree. But thank you so much, Roxy, for coming on the podcast again, and hopefully we can have you back for the next one, whenever that might be. Is there a new one coming?
Non-existent.
Non-existent.
What with the 7-month-old baby?
Oh my God, of course.
Intending to write one at some point. Yeah.
Well, you're amazing, and I'm wishing you all the luck in the world for the launch of Wants and Needs. I'm really excited to get to chat to more people about it when it's out in the world. So yeah, thank you again.
Good work.
And where can the listeners find you on socials?
Oh yeah, so Instagram, and that's it. I keep meaning to close down my X account.
Oh, I feel you. Just forget.
Yeah, Instagram, Roxy.Dunn.
Amazing. And for our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate, review and subscribe. And if you want to give us a follow, you can do so at A Pair of Bookends Pod on Instagram and at A Pair of Bookends on Twitter/X and TikTok. Go give Roxy a follow. Go buy her books. They're both amazing. And like I said before, you are going to love them. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.